Hello, everyone, and welcome to the FY24 Arts and Culture Operating Support Grant Program informational webinar. Thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone can see the webinar title page on their screen and is also able to hear me. You can raise your hand or comment as such in the chat if you're experiencing any issues at this time. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go on. I'm Nick Halder. I'm the chair of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission and a member of the Grant Subcommittee of the Commission for the City of Dubuque. We also have Laura Merrick with us as well today, and Laura is the Communications and Grants Administration Assistant within the Arts and Cultural Affairs Office. Today, we are offering an informational webinar about the Arts and Culture Operating Support Program through the City of Dubuque, which is administered by the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs. We're so happy to have you with us here today and learn about this program. I do want to share a few housekeeping items before we get going. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be accessible via a link posted to the operating support page on the Arts and Culture section of the city's website. All of you in attendance today and those who registered and were not able to make it will receive an email with a link to this recording. Also, the documents referenced today can be found in the webinar handout section. These documents include the FY2024 guidelines for this program, which also include the eligibility parameters, funding guidelines, and the scoring rubric for this program. The second document includes the questions as they appear in the Slide Room online application form. This document will prove helpful as you are crafting your application. The final document is the FY2024 financial worksheet, which is needed as part of the application process. This worksheet is a template that you can complete in Microsoft Excel by providing your organization's revenue and expense information. This information will be used to calculate the award amount that organizations are eligible for. Additionally, a PDF of the slides from this webinar and the documents I just mentioned will be made available on the operating support webpage. I'll show you here just in a little bit how to navigate to that web page and access those documents later in the webinar. Please feel free to enter any of your questions at any time in the question box, as we'll be monitoring the questions as they come in throughout the webinar. We may choose to respond to the question if it's easily answered at that moment, or choose to table the question to address it in the Q&A portion at the end of the session. Finally, if we identify a question as it is best being addressed offline after the session, we'll take note and we'll follow up with you afterwards. So again, thanks for being here, and we'll jump into more details about the Arts and Culture Operating Support Program through the City of Dubuque for FY 2024. Today, we're going to be covering in this webinar the purpose and important dates that you want to know about and have on your calendars, the eligibility requirements, the funding guidelines, rating criteria, application overview and steps, the review process, just so you know the steps after applying and what you can expect for the timeline on how things will proceed, a few helpful tips, and finally, then some time at the end for questions and answers. The purpose of the Arts and Culture Operating Support Program is to offer limited, unrestricted support to eligible arts and cultural nonprofit organizations who operate within Dubuque city limits and who also demonstrate a commitment to serving the community through access to the arts, arts education, and cultural heritage experiences. The program is intended to increase the community's access to a wide range of inclusive and diverse arts and cultural experiences that support economic activity, empower community engagement, and cultivate an equitable community. In addition, one of the questions in the grant application asks for applicants to demonstrate how their mission and programs advance and align with the goals and priorities of the City of Dubuque's Arts and Cultural Master Plan. Next, here are some important dates that you'll want to be aware of. The first of which is the deadline for submitting your application for the Operating Support Program. That deadline is Friday, April 28th by 11:59 p.m. And again, those applications are accepted online via the Slide Room portal. Throughout the month of May, we will be engaging a panel of reviewers to evaluate and score all those applications. That scoring will then be forwarded in late May and into June to the Arts and Cultural Affairs Commission that advises the work of the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs. The Commission looks at the anonymous scoring as it relates to the amount of funding that we have in the program. They then submit a funding recommendation on to the City Manager, which goes on to City Council for final approval. Following that, in July of this year, we expect that the award notifications and contracts will be released the soonest that they can based on our fiscal year, which begins on July 1st. Contracts can then be signed and remitted to the city in August, and they will then be executed by the City Manager. Make sure to include an invoice for the total awarded funds when you return your contract. That invoice is then sent to the city's finance office to process the payment. Payment is either sent via check or by direct deposit, depending on if you have previously set that up. You can feel free to reach out to city staff members to be put in contact with the finance office to set up direct payment if that is something that you would like. The direct payment option is a little bit faster in terms of the processing period versus a paper check getting mailed to you. The final date on the timeline is sort of far off, but it is the final report that will need to be completed on Slide Room prior to August 31st, 2024. This report tells us about your activities and your impact for the funding period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. This information is helpful in our reporting to City Council and the public about all the awesome work that you are each doing. In terms of organizational eligibility, some things to be mindful of. You are eligible to apply for the Operating Support Program if you are a Dubuque-based nonprofit organization. Additionally, your mission must be one that is primarily focused on providing the public with the programs or activities in areas directly concerned with the arts, arts education, or cultural heritage. Finally, organizations must be a federally designated 501c3 nonprofit for at least 2 years prior to the application date. Organizations that are not eligible for funding include for-profit organizations or businesses, nonprofit organizations whose mission is focused on religious, political, social service, or athletic activities. Additionally, organizations that use a fiscal agent or the tax-exempt status of another organization. Finally, educational institutions including K-12 schools, universities, and community colleges are not eligible for operating support. And finally, any organization with an outstanding final report associated with the previous grant award through the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs. So as a reminder, the final report for FY22 has been reopened until April 28th for organizations to complete if they have not previously completed it. That will need to be done in order to be eligible for FY24 grant programs. In terms of the amount of funding that is available through the Operating Support Program, the Office of Arts and Cultural Affairs has once again requested $250,000 to be allocated for this program. Organizations can receive a maximum of 6% of their operating expenses not to exceed $30,000. The max potential award total is figured from the prior fiscal year's expenses as reported in the financial worksheet as part of the application. On average, due to the amount of funding available in the program, the trend is that organizations see support somewhere from about 3 to 5% of their total allowable expenses. Next, let's take a closer look at how the applications will be evaluated and scored by the reviewers. There are 5 criteria areas that are evaluated as part of the application by the reviewers using a corresponding rubric. Each criteria area is evaluated on a 3-point scale for an overall maximum score of 15 points for the application. The 5 areas that are evaluated are the organization's management, financial health, and long-range planning, cultural leadership and community impact, the activities that take place during the funding cycle, diversity, equity, and inclusion integration, and finally, alignment with and advancement of the City of Dubuque's arts and cultural master plan goals and priorities. Let's now take a closer look at each of the criteria areas and the corresponding section of the rubric that will be used for evaluation. When completing the application, the first question applicants are going to be asked is to describe the organization's management structure, financial health, and any long-range or strategic planning efforts. When drafting your answer to the question, applicants are advised to refer to the corresponding rubric piece that looks at that question and is once again based on a 3-point scale. Reviewers will use the rubric to evaluate how successful applicants communicate their organization's strengths regarding management structure, financial health, and long-range or strategic planning efforts. In addition to the narrative response, reviewers will also factor in the following attachments into their scoring. These include the organization's financial worksheet, a current balance sheet, the most recent profit and loss statement, or the 990 form. Additionally, a roster of the leadership of your organization, both in terms of staff and board of directors. And then finally, your organization's strategic plan or any long-range term planning documents that you use to help guide the work of your organization. Once again, the narrative response and all the attachments are factored into the evaluation of the organization's management structure, financial health, and long-range or strategic planning efforts per the scoring rubric. The second criteria area of the scoring rubric asks applicants to share about how you, as an organization, demonstrate cultural leadership. There are 3 prompts that are provided to help applicants compose their response. Applicants should describe the quality, reach, and innovativeness of your activities and programs. Additionally, feel free to share any special recognition or accreditations that the organization has been bestowed. Finally, address how the community demonstrates support and investment in your organization and programs. The third area of criteria is again the timeline and activities that will take place during the funding period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, with also recognizing that some organizations might not have every single detail planned out to the nth degree at this time. If applicants are still finalizing details, feel free to share what you anticipate having coming up in the funding period. If available, applicants can also share information about who's involved in the planning and delivery of those activities. Once again, responses can vary based on how far each organization is in their delivery and planning. Additionally, applicants should address who they're looking to serve with that programming and provide any details on anticipated site participation versus capacity statistics and any demographic information that you have related to those activities. Finally, discuss how these activities relate back to your organizational goals and to community needs that you as an organization have identified as a place that you want and can impact. The fourth criteria area in the application is dedicated to how an applicant integrates diversity, equity, and inclusion into their organizational culture, operations, and programming. The City of Dubuque strives to be an equitable community of choice and prioritizes support to organizations that intentionally apply an equity lens, explicit of but not limited to race, to programs across and create access and inclusion. Applicants could include examples of how DEI is incorporated into management and operations of the organizations, including but not limited to professional development opportunities that your organization regularly participates in, to different policy changes or particular programs that you have in place. It is important that applicants can share examples of their commitment to welcoming and serving any and all Dubuque residents by presenting diverse and culturally aware experiences, representing diverse voices and expanding access. This is also an opportunity for applicants to identify any performance metrics that you have for your organization related to DEI and the ways that you evaluate those performance metrics and report on them. A great resource here for applicants is to reference is the Inclusive Dubuque Tools and Resources, which can be found on inclusivedubuque.org. And finally, the last criteria area in the application asks how organizations align with the Arts and Culture Master Plan goals and priorities. In their narrative responses, applicants can share how what they do helps the city further the arts and culture sector in Dubuque. As part of this question, there will be a checklist that applicants can select any of the strategies of the master plan that your organization is most actively advancing. The narrative response should connect what strategies were selected from the master plan back to the work of the organization. While not required, in addition to the Arts and Culture Master Plan, applicants can also connect their organization to some of the city's other plans in terms of the City Council goals and priorities, the Imagine Dubuque Plan, the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan, and the Equitable Poverty Reduction and Prevention Plan. So as we jump into the actual process of submitting an application, the first thing to note is that we will once again be using SlideRoom for this process. If you have never used SlideRoom before, it is an online application portal that is fairly user-friendly, and it also is used by the Iowa Arts Council for their grant applications. In addition to finding a PDF copy of the application questions on the City of Dubuque's website, applicants can also preview the questions right there in SlideRoom. The PDF of the application questions is provided to help applicants as they prepare their narrative responses to fit within the maximum character count limit. Most of the questions are limited to a 3,000 character count, and this does include spaces. It is helpful to plan out and type your narrative responses in a Word document so you can do a character count on your responses to get a sense of how many characters you're using, including all spaces in those responses. Additionally, within the application, there are different opportunities to upload the required attachments. We ask that applicants follow the file size requirements for each of the attachments. That will keep things similar across all applications and not create an extensive extra amount of information for our reviewers to read through. A couple of other notes about submitting an application that we want to remind you of. The first is that the applicant and/or the organization and not the city staff is solely responsible for the content of the applications. Once the application is submitted, there are no changes or additions allowed unless when staff members review the application, recognize that there was some glaring oversight or something looks like it was skipped. In that event, city staff might reach back out to ask for additional information. Additionally, the deadline is strictly enforced as SlideRoom will stop accepting submissions on April 28th at 11:59 p.m. I would now like to take a closer look at more of the technical process of locating the applications, applying, and navigating through the SlideRoom portal. As mentioned previously, information and materials for this program can be found at www.cityofdubuque.org. From there, locate the Doing Business tab at the top menu bar, and then there is a drop-down to the Arts and Culture section of our website. You can also just directly type into your browser www.cityofdubuque.org/arts and culture, and that will take you to this same page on the website. When you get to our main landing page for arts and culture, there's a variety of tabs over to the left that navigate to various other pages. Select the Funding Programs tab and click on the plus to expand the information that we have available on different funding programs. From there, click on the Operating Support tab, and it will take you to a new web page that looks like this. On this page, you will find all relevant information about the FY2024 Operating Support Grant Program. When you are ready to apply, simply click the orange outline box that says Click to Apply. You should then be taken to the SlideRoom portal, specifically with the City of Dubuque's logo on the top left corner. If you want to skip all of that navigation, you can also go directly to this web page by typing into your browser cityofdubuque.slideroom.com. Just a note, if you have not used SlideRoom before, you will need to set up an account, which can be done in the upper right corner of your screen. Returning applicants can sign into your account at this time as well. Also, Slide Room functions well in most internet browsers, except Internet Explorer. You will see on this page all live programs that the city has, including our Art on the River program. From here, you'll need to scroll down to the bottom of the listings and click on the FY2024 Arts and Culture Operating Support, and you will then be taken to here, which provides more information about the FY2024 Arts and Culture Operating Support Program. From here, you can preview the full application and required attachments. When ready to begin your application, click on Apply Now. You will then be directed to the applicant contact information form of the application. On every page, applicants will have the same navigation items along the top and left side of their screen. As you can see, under the first section, Forms, there are 5 subcategories as listed on the left side: applicant contact information, proposal narrative for FY2024 operating support, Arts and Culture Master Plan implementation, organizational FY2024 financial summary, and assurances. The second section is attachments, and the third is submit. If you have previously submitted an application via Slide Room, you may be prompted to copy answers from a previous submission, like the screen shows you. This is just one of the many great time-saving features that Slide Room offers. Another great feature is that Slide Room saves your information as you add it into your application. Additionally, you can jump from one section of the application to another without having to complete the previous one before moving on. The second form is where the narrative section begins, which covers the 5 criteria areas that we discussed earlier. Once again, you can see with each question the character count limit that tallies as you enter your response. I would suggest once again working on these responses in a Word document to check your character count and then copy and paste them into Slide Room. As you work through the various sections of the application, Slide Room will notify you of any incomplete areas. Once a section is complete, you'll see a green check mark indicating that it is ready to submit. You do not have to complete your application in one session either. You can work on your application over time and complete sections as the materials are ready. Simply click on Save and Exit as you're working through the application to save your most recent updates and return later. The third form in the application is that of the Arts and Culture Master Plan. Here you can see some of the various boxes that you can check that align with your organization and your work. Use the narrative box below to draw connections to those check strategies up above. The next piece of the application is that of the organizational financial summary. Applicants will be asked a few questions and need to upload financial documents, including the FY2024 financial worksheet, which we'll take a closer look at this form on the next slide, a current balance sheet, and then either a most recent profit and loss statement or your 990 from your previously completed fiscal year. Additionally, applicants will enter the organizational operating expenses figure from row 68, column D, from the applicant's FY2024 operating support grant financial worksheet. This figure will once again be used to determine the potential funding amount. When completing the FY2024 financial worksheet, applicants will supply financial information from their most recently completed fiscal year, current fiscal year budgeted, and current fiscal year actual year to date. Make sure to also enter your organization's name and fiscal year period at the top left of the document. Once again, you will enter the figure from row 68, column D, into question 4 of the financial summary section of the application. Applicants will need to save this worksheet once it's completed and attach it to question 3 of that same section. The last form to complete is the assurances section. Applicants are confirming that they've read and understand the program guidelines, that everything that you have submitted is true and correct as far as you know. And since this program is through the City of Dubuque, anything that is sent in as part of the application is potentially of public record. Also, if organizations are awarded funds, we do ask that they acknowledge the City of Dubuque as a supporter of their program in your marketing materials. The last question is asking applicants if they would like to be added to the Arts and Culture newsletter, which we're guessing many of you are already signed up for in attendance here today. Finally, the applicant needs to provide the name and the title for the person who has authority to sign off on your grant application so that they know that it is being submitted. The second section is where applicants upload the various attachments, which includes evidence of a 501c3 status, articles of incorporation, leadership in terms of paid staff or key volunteers, leadership in terms of your board of directors, and finally, evidence of long-range or strategic planning. Once applicants have completed each section, they will want to again look for those green check marks. The final section is to submit your application. Applicants will also have the opportunity to review their application before submitting it from this page. Applicants can then click the blue Submit Application button once they are ready. From there, applicants will get one of two screens. This is not necessarily the screen that applicants will like to see. However, it does identify what parts of their application is incomplete or missing. You don't need to stress out if this happens, and if you see and you receive this on your screen, you will still have the opportunity to complete the missing pieces as long as it is still before the submission deadline. Ideally, this will be the screen that you see once you click the Submit Application button. Applicants will receive a confirmation number that can be printed out, as well as have the opportunity to print a copy of your application. Applicants can also review their submitted application at any time by just logging into their SlideRoom account and selecting the Completed Applications tab. In terms of the review process, after you have done your work of completing your application, city staff members will receive all of the applications and review them. They will then make sure that each organization is eligible, ensure everything is completed in the application, and that it is in compliance. Staff members will provide applicants updates as the process continues. They will also work with the reviewers as they evaluate and score applications. The review panel consists of 3 volunteer jurors who have various expertise in arts and culture and/or nonprofit management. The reviewer scores are then forwarded to the commission, who will draft a funding recommendation that goes on to the city manager and finally to the city council for approval. Once the funding recommendation has gone through the approval process and is approved, staff members will put together the various contracts and paperwork and send them out to each organization. Funded organizations will need to return the contract and submitted invoice at the same time to staff. Staff will also manage the public announcement and communication of the awards. Finally, some helpful tips for all of you as you begin your process. The first is to review and prepare the application materials early. Also, download PDF of the application questions are available once again at thecityofdubuque.org/arts and grants, as well as preview them on SlideRoom. Answers, keep them within the limit, are limited once again in character count, which includes spaces. So once again, do some work ahead of time and use that Word document to create those responses. Also, attach only the requested attachments, being mindful of requested document length. And the big thing, keep the community outcomes and impact in terms of the why of your mission and activities front and center as you craft your responses. If applicants have any issues with the SlideRoom portal, they should contact support@slideroom.com. City staff members will not be able to help with any technical issues with that platform. Applicants should reach out to the city staff members if they need any type of accommodations or have any further questions after this webinar. They can be reached at artsandculture@cityofdubuque.org or calling 563-690-6059. At this point in time, we open up the floor for anyone who has any questions.
Nick, I'm not seeing any questions that are submitted.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, we'll wrap things up a little early. But once again, if any questions do arise after the fact, feel free to once again reach out to artsculture@cityofdubuque.org or by calling 563-690-6059. So with that, we thank you for joining us for this webinar. And as I mentioned, do not hesitate to reach out to staff members if you need any help to navigate through the process or have any further questions. Finally, thank you for all that you do in being a part of making Dubuque an awesome place to live.